Okay, good morning. This is the lunch break after the first session of the UCU Congress, and I thought it would be of interest to ask a range of delegates what they thought of today's session. So in this very short video, we'll be asking Michael McCrell from the University of Central Lancashire, and also an NEC member, what he thought of the debate. He took part in it today. And then we have Julie Wilkinson, who's branch secretary of Manchester Metropolitan University, and we have Jen Broadhurst, who's a first-time delegate here from Glasgow Caledonian University. Well, this morning we started off by a minute's silence following the atrocities in Manchester. And Julie, you're the branch secretary of Manchester Met University. Was this an important symbolic thing to do you think?
It was really crucial. I think our members are going to be really pleased to hear that the Congress put that first. It was a mark of respect. In Manchester Met, we're on the verge of, we were due to take strike action on the Wednesday and the Thursday, and the whole city is in shock, and many of our members are very directly involved. On the Wednesday, there were parents still ringing up the university trying to find out whether their kids, whether their, the students were actually still safe. So we didn't know what the situation was. We had to postpone our strike action, but we will be going ahead with it. I'm wearing my strike t-shirt ready.
And very
right,
good,
so
yes.
we will be going ahead with that. But we felt it was an absolutely necessary mark of respect. So I'm very, very pleased that the whole Congress recognised that. And also then that we moved on straight away to issues of wider solidarity in the Union, which I think is really one of the things I'm most proud about being in UCU, is that connection between the local and the wider solidarity with workers all over the world, with other educators all over the world. And it's something that only happens at UCU.
I think you're right there. It was fantastic. When you look at the areas that we covered, we had Vicky Now, our Vice President, talking about international solidarity, where the union's activities had led to people who had been incarcerated being released. And so we had a very moving speech, I thought, by Steve Boyce of the prison, who helps organise prison officers, on gay men in Chechnya. I thought that was outstanding this morning. We looked at Trump's visit, the French elections, and then Brexit, where we had some differences, and perhaps we can explore that as well. What do colleagues think, though? What was the tone like? Was it consensual? Was it combative, or differences? Michael, can I ask you first of all, what did you think of the tone this morning?
I thought it was really well conducted, the debate. Interestingly, I think we had a discussion about issues that we didn't have last year, because the Union, I think very wisely, took the decision not to debate Brexit and the EU, for reasons which were quite legitimate and I think were quite right at the time. But interestingly now, post-referendum, we're now having to deal with the aftermath, and that has given rise to these debates. And I actually thought the debate was very healthy, it was very good. I recognise that I took a minority position, but it was important for me that we actually have those discussions out in the open.
Yeah, it was a very collegiate way of looking at it. Jane, this was your first contribution to Congress, and as normal you got a round of applause, which is good. You talked about the importance of Brexit for our members at Glasgow Caledonian. Why was this important? Why did the branch want to raise this?
I think it was really important for our branch to raise this as an issue for colleagues, because so many people have spoken to us about the fear and uncertainty that Brexit has been causing them over the last year to 18 months in terms of postdoctoral opportunities and employment opportunities. And I think it was important for Congress today to hear those concerns and to discuss some of those concerns and to show solidarity with wherever people are on the leave or remain side of Brexit, that the individuals involved in the centre of the negotiations between our UK government and the EU government are not held as bargaining chips.
Yes, you talked about being a pawn in the bargaining sector. So you were happy that the motion got got passed.
Yes, very happy. As a first-time delegate here to Congress, it was slightly nerve-wracking speaking in front of so many people, but
And you
I
had
received
to
a warm
reply.
welcome.
There was one
Yes,
person
yes.
criticising your point of view.
Yes, there was one speaker against the motion, and I had a right to reply to that. And I think it was warmly received in terms of the debate, and I think it's been the debate has been carried out in a professional and collegiate manner.
That's fantastic. I'm going to turn to Michael now, because he argued against the concept, if I understood it right, of freedom of movement. But I think the body of the hall wasn't in agreement with Michael's position. So Michael, what was the basic argument on freedom of movement that you put this morning? Succinctly, please.
I'll do my best, Douglas. The concept is widely used, but I think there are different understandings of what freedom of movement is, because it sounds like it's a sort of right, a human right that's bestowed on individuals. And I just wanted to remind delegates of the origins of the concept and the context of it in terms of the EU more widely, and also the very real prospect that whether we agree with it or not, it's most likely going to come to an end, and that we have to have a debate about what succeeds it.
But you're thinking that actually freedom of movement can work against the interests. Is that correct? The interests of...
Absolutely. The freedom of movement...
something I would agree with. But
yeah.
Develop your...
Well, because freedom of movement, as I understand it, is to be seen in context with the other freedoms to move capital, goods and services around the internal market. Now that serves the interests of big European capital. It doesn't necessarily serve the interests of working class people. And the problem is that I understand it more in terms of an economic coercion rather than exercising the freedom. Because if you are forced, due to low wages and poverty and austerity, to leave your country and your family and go elsewhere, that's not necessarily a positive choice. It's a choice that's been driven by economic coercion and necessity. And that's why I think it's at least double-edged and not entirely just a positive thing.
Julie, you haven't spoken yet at Congress. Can I ask, what's your view on this debate? I know Jane's view, and I'll ask her a bit more. Did Michael convince you?
He did convince me in terms of liaising with the rest of the trade union and labour movement about the future discussions, about the future position. That was a very, very convincing argument, and I agreed with him entirely about that. I think there's something slightly different going on. A lot of the people are making arguments in favour of freedom of movement. Michael rightly said there are different definitions going on that aren't clearly enough expressed or explained. That was a good point. But I think the key point is that people are thinking about academic freedom. They're thinking about the opportunity to move and to bring thought in a free way from one university to another. That's certainly an issue for us in our university, and I think Michael will probably be nodding to agree with this, but you know, that issue of academic freedom and freedom of ideas is really crucial, and that's one that the conference was, I think, agreed about actually. So it was interesting because these are subtle and difficult debates, and it was a good discussion.
Yes, I think you're right. There are some complexities in it. However, I think, well, my reading of it is that most members of the UCU here were more concerned about how this would affect staff and students' ability to move, how it would affect things like research funding and so on. Jen, what were your any last thoughts on the freedom, you know, the points that Michael raised? Was there anything you could sympathise with, or did you think, I sympathise, but quite frankly it's wrong?
Yes, I think I would agree with Julie's point about the academic freedom. I think we're starting to see already colleagues being issued with letters from the Home Office and having reduced access to funding opportunities for research opportunities. And I think that fundamental question about the sharing of thought and ideas across not just Europe but also globally is something that we need to explore a little bit more and support.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, as you can see, that was a flavour of some of the debates. This will go on. Of course, we are arguing and talking and discussing and agreeing, I hope, until Monday afternoon. So, clock in again and see the videos later on in the course of the day's session and tomorrow's session. And that's us just now.